Greetings and welcome. We are in sophomore English, and our project today now is to assess, if not exegete, the text to friends, Maupassant's story to friends. We actually want to begin, though, by talking about this French cat because he is really important. Maupassant, let's talk about him for a moment. In many ways, you could argue that he is one of the central figures in the craft of the genre we call short fiction, the short story. In our freshman year, it's altogether possible, we were introduced to a really classic short story by this guy, a short story about a woman who, she's married, and she, by the way, as I talk, if you start to go, oh yeah, don't say it, start writing it. Now, we're working at 3A, obviously, a comparison of other texts. And she's kind of unhappy with her life. She's not a real happy woman. And then, hurrah, her husband comes home and says, hurrah, I've got good news. He's a government employee. We're going to a party. To which she says, oh, I don't want to go to a party because I have nothing to wear. To which he says, oh, don't worry. I'm going to let you buy a nice dress. And then she gets the dress and she's like, oh, I don't have any jewelry. To which her friend she goes to has jewelry. She, of course, gets this lovely necklace. She wears the necklace to the party. That's all the hints I'm giving. And then she comes home. Oh, it was a great, great time at the party. She comes through the front door and the necklace is missing. Not on her neck anymore. Immediately, great amounts of investigation start. We're looking for the necklace all over. Can't find the necklace. Well, they go and price this thing worth several $100,000. So she then has to start a new life. This new life involves her husband working a second job, having to take out a loan. They go and they buy a necklace that looks identical to it. They take it back to the woman who loaned them the necklace. She never knows that the necklace has been stolen. They never tell that the necklace has been lost. She herself becomes a hard worker. She has to get rid of her servant. Over the next 10 years, they work together to pay off this necklace, and finally they have paid it all off. Then she meets the woman she borrowed the necklace from, and she says, do you not recognize me? To which the woman's like, do I know you? The woman has changed so much in the 10 years of hard work, labor. And she says, I am your friend who borrowed that necklace from you. Oh, yes, her friend says, now I can see. Wow, where have you been? Oh, my last 10 years of my life have been rough, R-U-F-F, rough. Really, why? Well, because that necklace you loaned to, oh yes, I remember loaning. Well, actually, I lost it. No, you returned it. No, I lost it. But don't worry, I bought another one to replace it, and I just finished paying it off. It took me 10 years, my husband and I. To which the woman looks and says, you took 10 years to pay off that necklace? How could it take you that long? The necklace was fake. It wasn't worth $10. That's how the story ends. The famous story is, of course, called The Necklace by Maupassant, and in many ways is considered the single classic example of two things, the short story and the ironic ending. Right. By the way, it's intentional that I would use the term ironic ending. Let's go ahead now and put that one in our notes. Maupassant is known not only for being the classic storyteller, but he's also very interested in this thing called irony. So we'll look at Two Friends today as a classic work of irony. Now, when we're in 7th grade, they teach us the fundamental definition of a lot of these literary analysis topic words. And we kind of learn the definition, but it takes us several years before we begin to kind of feel really comfortable with these definitions of these words. In 6th grade, 7th grade, they taught you that irony is what? What is irony? Good, let's write that one down. Dramatic irony, something happens in the story which you do not expect. Ironic, say one thing, mean something else. This is often another definition of irony provided. We often think of irony as a surprise of some kind or another, something that we're not quite sure was going to happen. Or the interpretation of the event is duplicitous in some way. In other words, there's double meanings to the interpretation of the events. And to that degree, irony, quite frankly, can make us a little uncomfortable sometimes as readers. Sometimes irony can make us laugh. It can be humorous. Humor often will play the game of irony, but other times it's not so funny. We think of Two Friends, don't we? Unless you're somewhat demented in your humor. Two Friends is probably not much of a humorous story. Wait a minute. Why would we juxtapose Maupassant's story with another story about two cats that are going through the woods hunting each other when a tree falls on them? And oh yeah, Saki is also the great writer of irony, right? We have all kinds of nasty irony, including the title, Interlopers. Saki playing games all the time. We mentioned, I think, last year, you were introduced to the Open Window, another Saki offering of some irony. So, that's enough of introduction. Let's now get to the story itself. It helps if you know a little bit in terms of the issue of what's going on. We've got a context-wise, we've got a battle going on. The city has been quarantined. Do you understand what this means, blockaded? What does this mean? No one's allowed out of the city. No one's allowed into the city. So I don't understand. Why wouldn't the bad guys, in this case, what are them's names? The Prussians, right? These Prussians, why wouldn't they just come into the city and just completely annihilate the city? I don't understand. What's the point of doing this? Yeah, they're not going to go into the city and fight door to door. They see that as a waste of time. So instead, what do? They put a blockade around the city. No way in, no way out. The argument here is over time that the inhabitants of the city will just surrender because they start to starve to death, or they just don't like the fact they can't travel, etc. They'll just say, phooey with the whole project, we'll just surrender. That's the background to the story. We then have two gentlemen. They begin by reminiscing. Oh, before this wretched war, we used to enjoy going, what? Fishing. Let's do it, they say. Shall we? Let's go for a little jaunt, and we'll go fishing. Off they go to go fishing. Of course, to go fishing, they have to leave the city, which means they somehow have to sneak past the barricades, and so they do. Hurrah, they are successful. They catch fish. Then, they get caught. Kind of like fish stuck in a net. They get caught. We then will come to the moment of the decision. What do I mean by that? Someone want to talk me through level 1 here? What happens? The question is what? You must be what? Spies. You're clearly not two old men out fishing. Whatever. Something else is going on. No, dude, we're just fishing. No, I can tell, right? So we have a bad guy. He makes a deal with them. What is the deal? Ooh, this is dark. What's the deal? We want to know the password. Now, some readers of the story are like, password? Dude, what is that? What do you mean, password? Help me to understand. What's password about this story?
Like the code to get back in.
Yes. The only way you would be allowed out or in would be, the assumption is, you would know some kind of password. Because there will be border patrols on both sides. Both the Prussians as well as the Parisians will have their own way to check for spies. Therefore, you must know passwords. Give us the password. I don't understand. Why does the Prussian want the password? You got it. This would be basically the betrayal of the city, right? In other words, if you knew the password, the Prussians could send in spies of their own soldiers, etc., etc. To which, what do the two guys say?
Nothing.
No. Not going to give up any intel. He tries a different tack. What does he say?
He says, "I'll go you."
He pulls them apart, doesn't he? Divide and conquer. The old divide and conquer thing. Just tell me. Your friend's going to tell anyway. Just tell me. To which, no. Then, were some of you shocked at the rapidity in terms of what happens next? It's like, we don't have much conversation after that, do we? Line them up. They both get shot. Oh! Maupassant's description, our translation is pretty good out of the French for this story. description of the two bodies falling on top of each other. We'll pay close attention to language like this. Then, what happens to their bodies? They're thrown into the river with rocks on their feet. I don't understand rocks. Why rocks?
Because they sink, so no one finds them.
And then what happens to their fish?
Eat 'em.
Even more dark irony. Their fish get eaten as well. End of story. What? Some of you will say, what is redeeming about this story? Are you kidding me? I kept waiting for somebody to come in, charging in on a white horse at the last second to save the poor two chaps. No. Maupassant has another dark ending, kind of like the necklace. What? You spent 10 years paying off a $100,000 necklace that cost $10? Oh. We've often asked the question, what would the lady do next? Because, of course, that's where the story ends. Does she jump off the bridge they're standing on and drown herself? Does she throw that lady off the bridge into the river? Her whole life has been shattered with the experience of the lost necklace. We have a similarly dark ending. But let's become sophisticated readers for a moment, and let's try to look at this text from a different perspective. When we are young readers, we usually will see the text in very linear ways. A to B to C, and so on. And the story is what it appears to be. As we become more sophisticated, we begin to look at the story from multiple perspectives, like, at any given point in the story, does Maupassant ever tell us they are not spies? No. Why not, do you think? Why wouldn't he say it? Are they spies? And immediately one or two of you start to go, wait a minute. Oh. Well, maybe the story is a different story for you interpretively if you know they are spies. Spies in what way? Gaining information, how? They're going out to find out. Who are the bad guys? Where are the bad guys? And the way they do it is under the cover of fishing. They're also old. That maybe helps. Right? They're just a couple of old men out fishing. Are they spies? How do you read this story? Or are they just two friends? Miss Winters, are they just two friends or are they spies? How do you wish to read this story? Since Maupassant does not tell us, other than to say in the title that they are two friends. Of course, they could be two friends and still be rats. That doesn't help us out too easy. Winters, where do you want to come down on this one? Are these two chaps spies? If they are spies, do they get what they deserve? Does the story become less ironic for you if they are spies? Because they're spies. They're gambling with their life. I'm sorry, say it again, Ms. Martin.
Spies for who? For Ferris? Or
Yes, of course.
I kind of think they are because
Miss Kennedy.
they were so focused on not saying anything, and I think that they have to train them to do that. Because if it were me, I'd be like trying and both. And they just shook each other's hands.
Yes.
Like, have you ever gone fishing? Like,
Yeah.
my brother, you say a word and he starts yelling at you, saying, shut up.
You are saying crazy fisher guys and girls. Girls can fish too in Wyoming. Right? They're so focused. That's why they're not going to give up the intel. Although Kennedy makes an interesting observation. She says, dude, the guy's going to blow your brains out, stick you at the bottom of the river. Why don't they just make up the password is Zorro. Yeah, that's it, Zorro. No, they don't say anything. Miss Costalas, observation.
What's the deal with them in the beginning of the story where it's going back and it's talking about how they've always been fishing, how they've always been friends? Why is that included in there if they're spies?
Right. What? I mean, clearly, if two guys have been friends all their life, they can't be spies, Miss Costala says. Those wouldn't make good spies. Or would two guys that have known each other all their life and know the topography of the land well, would those make the best of spies?
That's one of them knows, like, yeah, didn't it say, like, being one of them was close friends with the
Yeah, what?
Uh-oh, some of us are starting to read closer the story. See what I mean by multiple perspectives? And now all of a sudden, notice, a little insight can make you go back and want to now reread the entire opening lines of the story just to see what game Maupassant is playing with us. Because let's point out for your notes, he is playing a game. He doesn't ever tell us one way or the other. And that lends to multiple interpretations of the text. We have a word for that, irony. In other words, let's point out for your notes now, this is really important to sophomores that we realize this. The story itself can be ironic. The events in the story, there can be irony. Oh, what do you know? The two guys go fishing and ultimately they become food for the fish. Right? Dark irony, Myers laughs, but it is dark irony. But let's point out, the story can work irony on you, the reader. Multiple interpretations, which when you begin from certain premises, you have certain kinds of outcome. Let's work from the perspective, though. These are not spies. And even if they are spies, let's focus on the notion of friendship, shall we? Two friends. They die together. This leads to really interesting 3B styled questions. If you had to endure a bullet in the head, would you prefer it alone or with someone standing next to you? If you had a choice. Not about the bullet in the head. That you have no choice over. That one, that's a done deal. That's a foregone conclusion. The bullet in the head, yeah, that's happening. Would you prefer to do that all alone? Or would you prefer to do that with your bestest pal of all time?
Well, is your friend still shot about it?
Your friend will also be shot with you.
So
So it's
No,
either
but
you
like-
shot over there and then he shot or you're just shot.
Is your friend still gonna get shot either way?
Friend's still getting jacked.
Then I would want to do that.
yeah.
You would want to be with your pal.
Yeah.
Question. Do you have a pal this early in your life who you could say, that's the pal I'd like to go with? If I gotta go, that's the one I'd like to go with. Can you think, you don't have to jot that name down, although you may want to play with initials for a second. But the more intriguing question at 3B is, what would a friend like that look like to you? I'm not saying physically. I'm saying, what kind of friend would that be? Would you have to go back a long ways? Would it be somebody you had to grow up with? Would it be somebody that knows your darkest secrets? Would it be someone who you have total faith in and trust in? Now, Miss Kennedy made an interesting observation. She said, you know, I gotta be honest. I'm not real happy to say this out loud, but I'll say it out loud nonetheless. If you give me the chance to be able to kind of not get shot by maybe giving up somebody else to get shot, our instincts as humans are to say, oh, no, that would never happen to me. I would never do that. But we're also familiar with the whole notion of under duress, in the moment of stress, we can have a tendency to kind of behave in more Darwinian ways. You knew Darwin was coming. What do I mean by that, Darwinian ways? Self-preservation is absolutely right. Dude, one of the two of us have got to get jacked. Let's play that game for a moment. One of the two of us have got to get jacked, and you're with your bestest pal of all time. The deal is simple. One of the two of you have got to get jacked. Who's it going to be? You or your pal? And how would you decide? And would it be better to just go together than to go alone? And why doesn't one of the two friends just give up the other guy? He's the spy. Jack him. How come? There's a religious text I read once that says it something like this. Greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life for his brother. It's an interesting idea, sometimes practiced in the world, Most regularly not, we would say. Would you agree? Are you morally obligated to defend your friend? To take care of your friend? Some students have said about this story, well, bullet in the head's a bit extreme. Let's make it real life so that it's more difficult. What about if, for example, your supposed bestest pal is not there and somebody starts talking about her? Then what? Do you have a moral obligation to stand up for that person? Or are you so inclined to say, you know, she'd probably talk about me. I'll just participate and pretend like it's not me and then try to forget. I'll say something nasty about her. Pray it doesn't get back to her. Hodges goes, bad idea. You mean that's not a friend? You're saying that if your bestest pal of all time ever talked about you behind your back, that means she's not your bestest pal. Even one screw up? Even one. Miss Schroeffel looks down and goes, these stupid questions. Why can't we ask easy questions that have yes-no answers? Now I'll ask it in academic ways. Is betrayal part of friendship? Is it inevitable? Or has Maupassant written a story that shows us the quintessential true friendship? Namely, no betrayal. That's what defines friendship, is no betrayal. So now I'll ask the question in a different way. And here, let's inject a 3A, as I often like to, the great Aristotle. In the holy trinity of great Greek philosophers, we begin with Socrates. He has a student named Plato, and Plato has a student of over 20 years named Aristotle. Aristotle wrote a really famous treatise on friendship. Are you ready for this? Aristotle said that a friend is the most important thing you will ever have in your whole life. More than money, more than power, more than fame, a friend. Whoa, that's a pretty extreme observation. And yet, Aristotle seemed to be quite serious about it. Oh yeah, the other thing he said was, you don't have very many of these. Maybe one or two is all. Is all.
I'm talking about true friends.
That's interesting. Miss Barris would use the adjective true. Let's write that down and ask, what is the difference between two friends and two true friends? I almost did this, Miss Barris, when I said it the second time. Two true friends. Miss Barris said, there is a difference between a friend and a true friend. Really? What is that? Is this the difference between acquaintances versus a real friend? Is that what you mean? Is it a matter of time?
Like a true friend?
How do you know when a person is a true friend? Does a big neon sign go off over her head? True friend, true friend, true.
I think it's like one of those things, I don't know where I saw it. There's something about this in this story where they could like look at each other or just come and like sit down next to each other, and it was like the best conversation you could ever have, and they could walk away without even saying anything and like have a change of words.
Yeah, that's a great one. You don't even have to talk to be around this person. It's almost as if there's like a psychic connection of sorts. Or sometimes they'll finish sentences. I once had a student inject here, that's so weird. The other day, my bestest pal of all time and I were trying to call each other. This isn't scripted. We're calling at the same time. So I get her message. She gets my message on my cell phone. But I knew that she was there and she knew that I was there. And then, I was calling you. Total random. And yet happening, the student's saying, see, that's evidence of true friendship right there. Question. Can you have this level of friendship at a young age? Or is it intentional in the story? These are two old guys. Does a true friend require time? That is to say, how many high school sophomores have said, in the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade. I was convinced so-and-so was my true friend. I'm not convinced of that anymore. In other words, time changes things in relationships. Do you got to live 20, 30, 40 years before you can really talk about true friendship? Or rather, is true friendship something different than that? Where do you come down on this?
Maturity.
In what way maturity? How can a friendship mature?
Like some older people just don't, have that trust and bond and stuff with other friends. And
Old
then
people or young people?
It can be either.
Ah,
Like just your intellectual maturity. Like
it takes time.
Yeah.
Why? Because you have to give the other person chances to screw up the friendship?
You have to base it on other friends and that happens.
You have to be able to compare. Having more than one friend. Good idea, bad idea? Having more than one friend. Backup. Ermintrout says, you need backups in case somebody screws it up.
Yeah.
She says, hate to say it, but it's called Warland High. And the drama that is a part of friends and friendships. Notice how easy it is in this discussion to always think about the other person and the betrayal. Let's reverse it. What about when it's you? Oh, why does he have to go there? Really? No one wants to admit that and certainly remember. Oh yeah, there was that time I totally screwed that up. I totally betrayed. Question. Once betrayal happens, can you still have a friendship?
Sounds
You
good.
fix it
Uh,
if you want to.
how do you fix betrayal if you're the one who screwed it up?
You make cookies.
You buy their friendship back with cuisine.
Yep.
Wouldn't be good for Oreos.
Or can we say it this way? If you can so easily buy back a friendship with some cookies, it probably wasn't either a very major betrayal or it wasn't much of a friendship. I'll make another argument. What about the argument that says real friendship is only born through the fires of betrayal? That's only when you find out true friends. That is to say, forgiveness plays a huge role in the development of what Ms. Barris will call true friends. Yes or no? How much of friendship, true friendship, has to do with trust? Once trust is broken, can it return 100%?
No.
So you're saying true friends can never screw it up?
No.
Ms. Hodges, we'll hear from you. Go ahead. Two friends can't screw it up then. Because once they screw it up, you said it's done. Never going to return to 100%.
No. It just depends on what they do, I think.
Oh, what they do matters. There are certain kinds of things that once broken, that level of trust, it's done. Now, are those things spoken of in advance? We are true friends as long as we don't do ABC. If ABC, no. See, Aristotle asked this in this famous essay on friendship. Where does friendship come from then? Do you wake up some morning, come to Orland High, look at someone and say, I'm going to be friends with her, and we're going to become the bestest of all pals? No. We have an academic parlance for this in the Aristotelian language. True friendship is organic. That is to say, it doesn't seem to be orchestrated or created. It somehow seems to grow. In fact, I've had sophomores that say, that's so weird you would say that. My bestest of all pal and I hated each other's guts, nay, 7 years ago. And now all of a sudden, we are pals. Now how do you account for that, you see? Well, you don't just kind of make up friendships. Ermintrout likes to use her fingers to say, you gotta figure it all out. Now, what's the worst crime a sophomore friend can commit on her friend at Warland High? Is it the betrayal with a wretched, stinking, disgusting, we won't even say it, yucky you-ya boy? Those wretched boys. Sophomore young lady once said, you know, I hate to say it, Mr. McGee. She was both. However, it seemed to me that this was a fairly astute observation. She said, if Warland High School was just a girls' school, oh, there would be so much different kind of friendships at this place. When you inject boys into this whole matrix, this calculus called friends, it ruins everything. And boys know it. They know how to play off against the friendships. They're aware. Are boys that smart?
No.
Well,
I don't think
They are, Miss Carver says. They know what they're doing. They use girls to split the union of friends.
That's how they think they can get into.
They think they can get into, and Miss Myers just did the rest like this.
Well,
What do you think about guys versus girls in terms of friends? Are guys better friends than girls?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, definitely.
because they can fight.
Whoa, we're in a class of all females. How many of you say guys at Warland High School in the sophomore class are better friends than girls? In this school, in this class of sophomores, are guys better friends than girls, or are girls
It's good to have like a really good guy friend and then a really good girl that's your friend.
Well, if you're,
Because then that guy friend, whenever you have a problem or something, you can just like talk to him and you know he's
Yeah,
not
girls-
saying anything.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, Miss Schroeffel has injected into our conversation one of the most difficult questions, and it's simply this. Can a guy and a girl just be friends?
Yeah.
Friend zone.
Or is friend zone a myth?
No. Mythbusters accident still real.
Or, wait a minute, have we found the heart of the difference between the way guys and girls think about friendship? Girls believe guys and girls can be friends. Guys, not so much.
Josh.
We immediately find ourselves thinking about the given individual who can break the rule. That seems to me to suggest the rule. Do you find most guys at Warland High School can have girls who are just their friends?
But there's like a select few that can.
I think it's funny, they start out friends and then they start dating.
You're saying guys are too immature to be real friends with girls.
I think
My brother talks about it. He says that he has girls that are just his friends. So.
But he is
How old is your brother?
We're twins.
So your brother who's a sophomore says, yeah, you can have a girl who's a friend. Sure, why not? You think most guys would agree?
I don't know if the girls agree with him.
Oh! What does it mean when a guy and a girl have been dating for a while and the girl says to the guy, let's just be friends? What does that mean other than you just got jacked?
I'm just trying to put it nice. They're not on that like relationship level.
In other words, friends in this language means you just got jacked and you don't even know it. Oh, thanks a lot. Appreciate that. Well, there you go. Notice how this story can allow for us to talk about any number of topics. We left off, obviously.